Randon Fontenette will be the breakout star of this Vanderbilt defense.
You are Locked On Vandy, your daily podcast on the Vanderbilt Commodores, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What's up, everybody? Welcome into the Locked On Vandy podcast on the Locked On Podcast Network. I'm your host, Corey Burton. Thanks for making Locked On Vandy your first listen each and every day. Shout out to the everydayers. Shout out to even if it's your first time. However you got here, shout out to you. You make this thing happen. You make this thing go. We're free and available wherever you get your podcasts and on YouTube as a part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every single day. And today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Did you know that you could get $150 in bonus bets when your first $5 bet wins? Well, now you do. So today's episode, we're gonna flip over to the defensive side of the ball, man. I think it's time to give, I think we got to give equal shine to the defensive side of the ball. Plus, I wanted to, this week with SEC Media Days happening, I'm loaded with topics and things to discuss and things to talk about. So thank you for that. Thank you for not being boring. All four of you, Clark Lea, to Diego Pavia, to Randon Fontenette, to Martel Hight. So thank you for providing plenty of things to discuss. So I wanted to properly feature here on this forum the guys that were representing Vanderbilt at Media Days. And so yesterday episode was about Diego Pavia. This one, I want to, down the road, I want to, do another thing about Martel Hight being a two-way star. But today I want to get more on the defensive side of the ball. I want to feature a guy that doesn't really get talked about a whole lot, right? And we're going to talk about how the defense needs to get takeaways. And, they had a big major recruiting win, by the way. Shortly after things wrapped at SEC Media Days, Evan Hampton decides he's going to flip from Louisville to Vanderbilt. He watched SEC Media Days and saw all he needed to see. He switched to the black and gold. We're going to break that down too. But like I said, I want to talk about a guy that's not really, when you talk about Vanderbilt, only the people that really know Vanderbilt football are going to talk about this guy. Like, there's no major headlines about Randon Fontenette. There's no endless talk about Randon Fontenette. And he's kind of like the silent star of the team. Like, the dude just produces. The dude is just around game-changing moments all the time. And I think it's worth talking about him because, you don't really ever hear, you search up Randon Fontenette, there's not a whole, prior to his appearance in Media Days, there's going to be a lot now. But prior to that, you don't see a whole lot about him. And I want to, because he's a player that deserves that, right? And there's a lot of players that do deserve that. I did a YouTube short about Cedric Alexander, and that's not going to be the last time I talk about him. But, there's stars on this team that I think, not to any fault of anybody, but I think Diego Pavia kind of has that personality where, and it's the starting quarterback on an SEC team that has the personality of a WWE superstar like Diego Pavia, kind of overshadows everybody a little bit. And that's not a bad thing. It just is what it is. So I think with Randon Fontenette, you look at a guy that's going to be an absolute beast on the defensive side of the ball. Not a whole lot of people are talking about it, right? And so I wanted to give shine to that. And one of the quotes that really stood out to me from SEC Media was not even from Randon Fontenette, right? It was about Randon Fontenette, but it wasn't from him. It was from his teammate Martel Hight. And this describes it perfectly. It even gives me a new nickname for him. I don't know if the team's been calling him this, but this gives me a new nickname for him and a chance for me to have fun with that a little bit. It's one of my, it's a childhood movie that I saw. I haven't seen it in a while. I may even go back and watch it now. But Martel Hight coming in with a freaking heater here. That's not it. It is this one. All right. He's a silent killer. He's demanding, but in a positive way. He's like Rambo as a leader. You just know. You know what? That's kind of what he is. He's the Rambo of our team. He's just a dog, man. I love him. And props to Martel Hight for knowing the Rambo reference. Props to him for understanding that. That is a dynamite reference. And for people in this generation, that's a reference that I'm surprised that anybody knew, because that's it's not like an obscure movie, but like within this generation, it kind of is, because it kind of gets lost in that whole 80s action thriller saga of like all these, it was like the Stallone versus Schwarzenegger tales. But the premise to Rambo is this. He's I forget the exact, it's been a while. I need to go back and rewatch it. But the gist of it is the dude is a one-man army. And he's silent, doesn't say a word. He just pops up out of nowhere, takes out an entire platoon, and you can't catch him. You can't defeat him. You can't you can't beat him. You can't see him. You're not going to hear from him. And he's a silent killer. And that's exactly what Randon Fontenette is. Rambo to a T, right? Because you don't hear anything out of Randon Fontenette. He gets excited, of course, and I'm sure he's getting his teammates going on the sideline. That from a leadership perspective, that's probably pretty obvious. But like as far as like being more outward than that, no, he's not, and not a lot of people talk about him either. So he's one of those guys that I think I take that back. I don't think he gets overlooked by offensive coordinators, because if you look at his stats, he obviously wasn't overlooked, because any defensive player with low stats, one of two things is true. Either you didn't play a lot, or you were schemed against and they really focused on taking you out of the ball game. And for Randon Fontenette, the one stat that takes me to the latter of those statements is the fact that he made 12 starts, right? He was in every game. He played every game. He played just about all of every game. So the second part of that's true. He was schemed against a lot. And being in the star position, teams would run away from him. They would, they would do things to effectively try to neutralize him. But there was a large part of the season they couldn't neutralize him. So, but he's, like I said, he's going to be, I think if you had to point to a leader on last year's defense, because he's so quiet, I don't think you would have noticed him as a leader, but I think he was that guy. Langston Patterson, I think, was that guy also to a certain degree. But it was more of a collective effort defensively last year. And I think there was not that one person. And I think Randon Fontenette, even to probably his own admission, would say that he probably needs to be a little bit more vocal to really kind of take on that alpha leadership role. Like, hey, look to me. It's going to go through me, right? They were missing that a little bit to a certain degree. Like on third downs down the stretch of the season, this defense was awful. Because I just don't think there was, I think some of that kind of broke down. And only one man can't do all of it. So those are some things that I think are going to be improved upon this year. There's going to be better depth, more communication, more comfort within the system, all of that good stuff. So I think there's going to be chances for guys like Randon Fontenette to step up and lead, because he's a veteran in the system. He's a veteran in college football. He's putting in all the work. Like I think last year he was trying to get himself ingrained into the squad. I think he was trying to make a name for himself. I think he was trying to fit in. Last year was a transfer from TCU. Like I don't think he was necessarily in a position to be able to be that outward leader. I think he developed into that a little bit, but I don't think right off the bat he was quite that guy. I mean, he made plays right off the bat, because you look at his impact in the Virginia Tech game, it's there. But as far as being that next level leader, I don't think he was there yet, which is understandable. You're new, Langston Patterson had been around the block, and CJ Taylor had been with the team. And those were kind of the guys that were transitioning the rest of the newcomers. And now Randon Fontenette is that guy. So it's going to be a totally different leadership style for him this year. So I'm looking forward to that as well. Clark Lea had this to say about him about his leadership qualities and about what kind of offseason that he's had. He said he stepped up in critical moments, made season-defining plays on defense. That's something that's going to continue to trend upward. He's improved in all areas this offseason, but most importantly, he's modeled consistency in his work and really exhibited some leadership qualities that we'll rely upon this fall. And the word consistency is the one that really stands out to me, because I think with a lot of teams, you get a lot of ebb and flow in focus and work and all that stuff. You get a lot of that. And for somebody that's consistent, like Cedric Alexander, consistent. Diego Pavia, outspoken, brash, but consistent. His message is consistent. His work is consistent. It is consistently at a high level. Randon Fontenette, consistently at a high level. Silent killer. He just does, man. He just goes in there and he just grinds, dude. He's just getting after it, man. And the guys will naturally fall in line on that. So he's developing his leadership qualities there as well. He's more of an example guy, but I think within this new scheme, he's going to have to kind of take on a more vocal role, which I think he's going to anyway, naturally. But, it's going to be, that's going to be important for him to be able to do that. But so here's kind of how I see his season going. Here's kind of my outlook on him. Rambo, that I don't know if that's a nickname that's going to stick. It will stick on this show. Rambo, right? He has an knack for making big plays, big game-changing plays. Like the pick six against Bama is the best example, but there's others that don't necessarily show up so obviously in the stat sheet, right? And you look at his stats. Like his stats don't jump out at you. 12 starts, that's the one that jumps out. 73 tackles, 8 tackles for loss, 3.5 sacks, and a pick, which was returned for a touchdown, right? Like you look at those stats, you're like, okay, that's pretty good. But like a lot of what he did was, like I said earlier, he was schemed against. Offensive coordinators were looking to figure out how they were going to neutralize him, and some were able to a certain degree. And some plays he made, there's some plays that don't show up on his stat sheet, but that he contributed to, like setting an edge and forcing the run inside, forcing a quarterback to throw the ball away. Like I don't know that they had a stat on him for quarterback hurries, but I'm sure on some of his rushes he had those, right? Coverage things that he did where he was taking away throwing lanes and forcing the quarterback to hold on to the ball so that Miles Capers could sack him, or like things like that contribute to other guys making plays, that contribute to Vanderbilt getting off the field on third down, that don't show up on the stat sheet. That's kind of what he brings. So here's what I'm going to say about him. Here's my outlook for him. Brandon will look to once again be a dominant force on defense. I think he absolutely will. He's going to improve his tackling in space. He's going to improve his coverage and ball skills. As a star, I think sometimes you can get in more of the star position, and it varies team to team, but for this team, it's kind of like a strong safety outside linebacker. So sometimes you're off the ball, sometimes you're on the line of scrimmage, sometimes you're jamming in number 2, sometimes you're rushing off the edge. Like you're doing a lot of different things. So like it can very easily turn into a jack of all trades, master of none type situation, which I think for him, I don't know if he played that at TCU. I'm not going to go back that far, but like it's all, I imagine it's relatively new for him to be this kind of jack of all trades type position. So he's going to, there was a little bit of a learning curve there is what I'm saying. And to be elite at the next level, tackling in space is paramount. So I don't care if he was really good at it. He still needs to improve at that, because that's a very, very fundamental skill in the NFL as far as coverage skills too, being able to cover tight ends and creating mismatches and being that boundary safety, being that box line of scrimmage safety. They're carving out roles for guys like Randon Fontenette at the next level. And so this is going to be interesting to see how this season plays out for him and to see those skills kind of develop, which I think they will. But I think he's going to have a monster year, and you're going to see that be rewarded in the NFL draft. But he's, like I said, he's going to be a dominant force for this defense, and this defense is in desperate need of that they have to create turnovers. That's their main goal. Force more turnovers. Randon Fontenette's going to be a key in that. I'm going to tell you how they're going to do that next. Hey, but first, it's all about FanDuel, right? Summer sports are in full swing, and as I'm recording this, the MLB All-Star Game is happening. The NL is up on the AL 2-0. Whether you're all into baseball under the lights, golf on the green, high-stakes soccer action, FanDuel is the best way to make every game even more exciting. I'm probably going to bet on the Open Championship. I haven't looked at the lines yet, but I will look at them before Thursday's first round and definitely before Sunday's final round. So. You're already following the action. Why not make it a little more thrilling? With FanDuel, you can get in the game while your friends are getting sunburned at the beach. I've been using FanDuel to track my favorite matchups. I'm going to be using it to track my favorite golfers, and the app keeps it fresh with new daily promotions and fun ways to bet. It's easy to use as well. It's fast to pay out, makes even regular season games feel like must-watch events when it comes to baseball. Whether I'm placing same-game parlay or watching a bet ride into the ninth inning, FanDuel makes it feel like I'm part of the action. So are you new to FanDuel? Well, new customers can bet just $5 and get $150 in bonus bets if your first bet wins. So open the FanDuel app today or visit FanDuel.com to get started. Thanks for making Locked On Vandy your first listen each and every day. We're free and available wherever you get your podcasts and on YouTube as part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every single day. If you need a second listen, SEC Media Days week, Locked On SEC is the place to go. Chris Gordy has you all covered. And of course, if you really want to know the scoops from all the other teams, just check out the other schools in the network. All 16 SEC teams are represented. So if you want to know what's happening with the teams on our schedule, just visit those respective shows as well. So lots of great stuff on this network. But, like I said, Randon Fontenette crushed it, man, because, like I said, he's somebody that deserves to be represented here. And he's somebody that, like I said, is kind of that star that I don't think overlooked is the right word. But he's a star. He's a star, but you don't really put him in that star category because he is so quiet. And that's unfortunate for those kind of quieter guys like that, or for those kind of, less talked about stars, because they deserve it too. Right. And they're just as much and just as important as the rest. So that's kind of my thoughts on that. But one of the biggest goals for this defense coming into this season is turnover margin, right? And Clark Lea said we have to win the turnover margin. Excuse me. We have to do better job defensively attacking the ball and creating more turnovers and giving the offense a little more room for error, right? I think the offense had to be perfect, not perfect, but like perfect-ish. And this defense, I think if they can create more opportunities, I think if they can get off the field and get the ball back to the offense, that would be good. So more 3-and-outs, getting off the field on third down more frequently, but taking the ball away, giving them not only opportunities to possess, but opportunities to possess in favorable field position, or even better, put points on the board, like against Alabama, like the aforementioned Randon Fontenette. Pick six against Alabama, puts points on the board, gives you much needed momentum. Martel Hight, pick 6 against Tennessee. Like those type of plays can also make your offense more potent, because now they're in a position to where they feel good, they feel relaxed, they feel, okay, we don't have to. I mean, the offense will put that own pressure on themselves, like they have to score. But like in the grand scheme of things, it's not paramount that they have to score every time they touch the ball. That's the goal, obviously, but like the pressure is a little bit less. So that's going to make things easier for the team. It's all about complementary football. It's really kind of what it's about. So this is something that I think Clark Lea is on a mission to do. That's one of the things he mentioned as far as something, like I said, attacking the ball, creating more turnovers. And just kind of the reasons behind it again are the psychology of the team. Just any team you look at, anytime they force a turnover, what happens? There's some sort of turnover chain, some sort of dunking celebration. There's something happening on the sidelines. The golden shoulder pads, the spike shoulder pads at Georgia, whatever. There's a lot of things, and when you have those things, it makes the team feel good. And if you can make it to where you celebrate the turnovers to a degree where, I mean, the team's motivated to take the ball away. Like, everyone wants to create takeaways, but like, it's always nice to be able in a grind of a game, you get an interception, you can go over and have a little fun on the sideline, right? And celebrate it. And it just kind of makes you feel good. It puts you in a great mindset. Your offense feels really good about themselves going on to the field, even if they've been struggling, right? It's 3 and out, 3 and out, 3 and out. Boom, defense gets a pick, long return. They get into plus territory for the offense. The offense is going out there. They could have gone 4 3 and outs in a row, but they're coming out there like they've just scored 60 points already, right? And that's kind of the psychology behind all of that. It's being able to put your team in a position to feel confident and to feel good about itself and to be able to capitalize on those things, right? Because if you don't capitalize on turnover, it's just, it's an arbitrary change of possession. But if you, like against South Carolina, for example, Vanderbilt's defense gets it. They intercept Lenore Sellers, and they have favorable field position. It's like 1st and 10 from the plus 15, right? Like, they're in bona fide scoring range. Like, they're in, hey, we're going to score a touchdown range, and the offense fumbles it right back. And I don't want to place blame on any one thing, but like, that was very deflating. Now, just think about it on the flip side, because I think it was a 7-7 ball game at that point, if I remember correctly. But at that point, instead of fumbling it back, if Vanderbilt, and I think Diego Pavia actually fumbled it. It was a strip sack, right? You miss a rusher on a protection. Diego Pavia gets drilled and drops the ball, right? You could have better protection. Pavia could have set the protection better, and of course, Pavia could have obviously could have protected the ball a little better too. So, like I said, it's not even one person's fault. It's a team game. It's a whole chain of events. But the point is, you go from extremely deflating to potentially game changing, and you punch one in there, that sends you over the edge in the other way. Who knows what happens? Maybe you snap the streak at that point. It's just, you never know. Like, turnovers can have that psychological effect. It can be extremely deflating to give the ball away, and it could be equally as inflating to take the ball away. So that's something that I think, a bigger preference on that, a bigger focus on that, I think will help them create those. Like, they're going to work on that in practice. That's going to be a point of emphasis for everything that they do. Get the ball back to the offense, right? That's something they're going to harp on. That's something they're going to focus on. And they're going to get a lot better on that if that's going to be their main focus. Getting off the field on 3rd down and attacking the football. They're going to get off field more on 3rd down. They're going to attack the ball. They're going to punch it out. They're going to pick it off. They're going to recover it. They're going to scoop and score. They're going to pick six it. They're going to do a lot of things. And I think it's going to benefit this team. It's going to benefit this offense, and it's going to benefit the special teams for them to be able to do that. And I'm very excited about that, and I'm glad it's going to happen. Speaking of victories, they had a major recruiting victory on the heels of their SEC Media Days appearances. It was a flip. Who was it? We'll talk about it in a minute. All right, thanks for making Locked On Vandy your first listen each and every day. We're wrapping up the show here. We're having fun this SEC Media Days week. We're focusing on we're featuring the guys who have been there. We're featuring, we're talking offense, we're talking defense. We're this Vandy team. The thing I got from this is that like the confidence is there. Like Coach Lee last year was like, yeah, we're going to work hard. We're going to bounce back. We're going to do the things This year, it was more than just the standard, well, we're chasing progress. We're never satisfied. Like he said some of that, but he also threw in some things like, yeah, if we're not, we're good enough to play for the national championship. We've got a team built to play into January. We've got those things. And he said a lot about that stuff, and we'll talk about it probably later this week when I focus on culture, because Clark Lea was the culture guy, right? But something special happened, right? Evan Hampton must have been watching something and felt good about what he was seeing because he flipped from Louisville to Vanderbilt. He was like, okay, they're in the SEC. Like, they just represented well at SEC Media Days. I've got to be a part of that. Sign me up, right? That's ultimately what happened, I have to imagine. And this is huge. This is a huge deal because this is a 4-star kid. This is a highly thought of recruit. This was a battle that, I thought Vanderbilt was in for a long time. It actually surprised me when he committed to Louisville. But he's the type of back that I think is going to complement Isaiah Lee very, very well. I wasn't sure who they were going to bring in for that role, but I think this is the guy that I wanted to bring in from the start when he made his decision back in the spring. And this he's a special guy. Evan Hampton, Owensboro, Kentucky. This guy's special. Here's the evaluation. He's big, explosive running back, 6 foot 210. He brings a heavy, explosive running style. We'll explain that in a minute. Right? He has great vision. He's a feel to find open run lanes. He's tough in between the tackles. He can break tackles to make big runs exceptionally well. He doesn't have elite speed, but can make some big plays in that he can pull away from you. He's going to be a great pairing with Isaiah Lee. Now, what I mean by this, heavy, explosive running style, okay? A lot of times you hear heavy, and you think, oh, this guy just clods along and just runs over people. He's never going to be able to run away from anybody. He's, of course you're going to say that about a big back, right? He's 6 foot, 210 pounds. Of course you're going to say that. And to a certain degree, yes, because that's what you need. Out of a guy that's 6 foot, 210, you need a heavy runner. And when I say a heavy runner, I'm not saying he's slow. That's not what I'm saying. Because Cedric Alexander's a heavy runner. He's not slow. He's not big and clotting. Like, heavy running means that you 10 times out of 10 deliver the shot. When you tackle, the defender feels it for a while. Like, you always fall forward. You're always making contact. You're always, it always takes 2 or 3 guys to get you down. You have really good yards after contact. You have good contact tackle breaking maneuvers like stiff arms, running through people, things like that, bouncing off tacklers, things of that nature. And that's what a heavy running style is. And that's what Evan Hampton is. He's a heavy runner. He makes you pay. He wears you down. These cornerbacks that are going to tackle him, these safeties that are going to tackle him, they're going to make business decisions throughout the course of the game. These linebackers are going to get tired of hitting him because he hits back, right? There's a lot of running backs that try to land pretty and try not to take these huge shots. He's the one who's going to say, okay, linebacker, you want to tackle me? You're going to have to earn this. Boom. He's going to either stiff arm you if he has the space, or if there's no space and he knows that a tackle is imminent, he's going to make sure you pay the price. And that's the style of runner he is. Now, the explosive part of that is when, he bounces off of you or he stiff arms you and he puts you into the dirt. He can then pull away after that. Like, he can make the big play. I don't know how that'll translate. His speed will translate into the SEC. I don't think he's going to be as much of a home run threat in the SEC as he is in high school. But I've seen enough where, like I said, I don't know that he has elite speed. It's hard to tell. But it's something to where he's going to get massive chunk yardage. I mean, he could score from 40 in any league. All right. He's going to be a guy that's going to develop strength and conditioning wise, speed wise, agility wise. He's going to improve all of that. But he's somebody that he can stiff arm you. He'll stiff arm a linebacker and he'll gain 22 yards after that before anybody touches him. He could pull away. Like, he's a guy that also has a knack. He's great vision. He's great feel in the run game, which is great for what Vanderbilt wants to do in the zone run scheme. He can sift his way through and find an opening. He's kind of that. He's kind of like, I guess you could say sneaky is the right word to describe him. Like, he can just kind of sift his way and find and explode through. Now, at the next level, I think he's going to have to be a little bit more decisive on some of these runs. I don't think he's going to be able to string out some of these runs like he's doing in his highlight reel. But I think as he gets more decisive I think that's going to only add to his explosiveness and his heavy run style, because you're going to be downhill faster and you're going to be exploding into the run lanes a lot quicker. So that's something that I look forward to seeing him do. But him and Isaiah Lee are going to be phenomenal pairing, because you're going to get him. That's going to be like, he's going to be your in between the tackles guy. He's going to be stretch, run the stretch play and just kind of plow through people, stiff arm somebody, get 25, 30 yards. Isaiah Lee is going to be the home run hitter, the guy that comes in. And it doesn't matter which one of those guys starts. They're going to get equal carries. They're going to get equal touches. Like Isaiah Lee may get like 10 less carries, but he's going to get 5 to 8 receptions, and they're all going to be big plays, right? And you're going to have impacts like that from these running backs. And this is what Vanderbilt needs in their new scheme. They need running backs like this. And I think you're going to get a preview of this with Cedric Alexander and MK Young this year. I think you're going to get a preview of what Vanderbilt actually wants at their running back position, because they don't want just one guy. You can't sustain just one guy. Cedric Alexander proved that. You can't sustain him with one guy. You get banged up too badly. You get beat up too bad, truthfully. So you need 2 or 3 guys, and here you go. I think these 2 guys are going to set themselves apart, and this is a great commitment. I think this is a great fit for Evan Hampton, because what he does is what Vanderbilt does to a T. Like, I think it's a perfect scheme for him. I think he would have wasted away at Louisville, and I think he knows that. So I'm very excited to have him. Very excited that this team is heading in the right direction. Leaders are emerging from this group. I think the culture is working. I think Clark Lea is finally getting through what he wanted to get through. And I don't think people realize just how hard it has been since he took over. And a lot of people are like, oh, Clark Lea sucks, But like, it's been a freaking task, man, trying to get this program to a level to where it believes in itself. And I think you're finally starting to see the fruits of that labor. It took a few bumps in the road, but like, I think you're in a place to where you're this close to being a sustainable, viable, solid program. And then you can go upward still even from there. So this is the arrow's pointing up. And Randon Fontenette's a huge reason for that. Martel Hight, somebody I'm going to talk about on a later episode, is also somebody that plays into that as well. Diego Pavia, obviously, and the rest of the guys that weren't that are stars that weren't represented at SEC Media Days, like Eli Stowers, Langston Patterson, Cedric Alexander, Junior Sherrill, those guys, Brian Longwell. The entire offensive line, those guys weren't featured at SEC Media Days, but they played just as important of a role. And I'm gonna make sure that I put light on everything, and I think I've done that so far, but we'll see. Anyway, enjoy the rest of your evening. We'll see you back next time on the Locked On Vandy podcast on the Locked On Podcast Network. Like, subscribe, anchor down. Peace.